All right, it looks like we've got a fair number of people that have joined. So I would like to thank you for joining us today. My name is John Westcott. I run the Alliances and Marketing Groups at Zixi. Today I am joined by Blackbird's Daniel Webster, who is the Vice President of Strategic Accounts. His colleague George Maddox, who heads Global Pre-Sales, and Zixi's Natram Dionarain, Senior Sales Engineer for Alliances. And they will provide us with an overview of Zixi to start with, a little bit about Blackbird, the company, the technology, and then step into the integration of cloud-based editing for live video that we have created together. We will do a demonstration, a live demonstration, and then move into Q&A. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Natram Dionarain, who's going to talk a little bit about Zixi.
Thanks, John. Zixi started about 13 years ago as a protocol. And since then, we've evolved into a software-defined video platform. And who's using Zixi today? Traditional broadcasters, OTT broadcast services, and service providers are leveraging Zixi to transport video broadcast quality from point A to point B. And they're using this to distribute live linear channels, occasionally used as well, across any IP, any network, any cloud provider, and any edge device. This is all being orchestrated by Zixi's Zenmaster to control, manage, and spin up and spin down workflows. Next slide. The software-defined video platform is takes up four parts of the software-defined video platform. The first part is the protocols. So we think Zixi protocol is the best. There are a number of features that we've implemented across the last 13 years, such as DTLS, dynamic FEC, protected multicast, the ability to save bandwidth when transporting streams from point A to point B. In addition to the Zixi protocol, there are 16 additional protocols that we support, NDI and WebRTC being the newest ones as of Q2. In addition to the protocols, there's the video solution stack. This is where we are able to achieve 95 nines of uptime, leveraging technologies such as hitless failover, bonding. And then on top of that, we're collecting a number of analytics across every point of the video being transported from point A to point B. In addition to the analytics, we're also making available transcoding, recording, time shifting delays, the things that broadcasters typically use in their video workflows. This is all being managed by Zenmaster. Zenmaster ties it all together to create workflows, do RCA, spin up new workflows, and it makes it very easy for regular operators to be able to manage different workflows, whether it's transcoding workflows, OTT workflows, or just distribution to different endpoints. Finally, the fourth part of the Zixi software-defined video platform is the Zixi-enabled network. This is where we have 180 tech partners across 700 countries. 700 customers, 100 plus countries with 100,000 Zixi instances across the world. Of the 700 customers, this is a subset of our main customers that are using Zixi to manage their video ecosystems. Next slide. And across the 180 plus partners, we have a number of different partners that are hardware or software capable devices that has standardized Zixi as part of their service being provided. The Zixi-enabled network includes service providers, content owners, and they are all basically speaking the same language. So service providers have Zixi enabled to be able to send video from point A to point B. The content owners are the ones distributing video, and they're leveraging multi-clouds to be able to do that. The OTT platforms are also the endpoints for Zixi where you can send your video. So all of these different services are able to speak the same language and communicate via Zixi. Today we're announcing the Blackbird partnership. This is one of the newest partners within the Zixi ecosystem, along with Net Insight and ad insertion platform Erdedo and MediaKind. The 5 major use cases using Zixi are satellite rasterization. That's where, in the US, in the last few months, they've announced 200 megahertz being allocated to 5G spectrum. So with that, a lot of customers are moving away from satellite and leveraging new technologies such as Zixi to distribute video from point A to point B. In addition to that, sorry about that, the content exchange is the next major use case where our customers are sending video to the OTT endpoints. Remote monitoring as well is another use case that our customers are using Zixi for, to be able to monitor remote the endpoints, collect the analytics, and use Zixi for the Zixi Zenmaster for our quick RCA. There's the 4th major use case is new revenue sources. So for Zixi, the customers are able to send content across different countries without going up and down satellite, without leveraging fiber. So it's making it easy for customers to be able to distribute video to numerous new endpoints. And finally, cloud virtualizations. More customers are moving to the cloud for distributing their content. So Zixi is enabling that to be very easily managed through sending video from a feeder or any of partner devices into the cloud, and then from there onto the distribution endpoints. Zenmaster is the Zixi orchestration platform that manages all of this ecosystem. At the Zixi enabled Edge, we have a number of different hardware partners that are able to encode video and send it across, whether it's unmanaged or managed networks. Our customers are leveraging these different networks to deliver content into CDNs, into smart TVs, into OTT platforms and endpoints. Today we're showing the endpoint being Blackbird, where you're able to live edit Zixi feed coming in. So, and with that, I'll ask Daniel to intro Blackbird.
Hi everybody, thank you very much, Natram. I'm just going to share my screen here. It's great to be working with Zixi. Basically, the combination of Blackbird and Zixi provides speed, security, and interoperability, which I think is very much sort of unmatched in the industry. When it comes to Blackbird, we have a very bold claim. We believe that we are the world's fastest, most powerful cloud video editing and publishing platform. And hopefully over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll actually be able to sort of show you that and make you believers of what we know is a great sort of technology. So as we all know, we live in exceptional sort of peculiar times, and COVID's sort of accelerating the move to the cloud in multiple different sort of ways. The good news is that Blackbird was designed from the ground up for the specific purpose of being cloud native and to enable remote production in the cloud. And the reason for that is because at its core, we produce a video codec specifically for the purposes of cloud video editing. And this distinguishes us from a number of the other solutions out there, which are using either streaming protocols or on-prem sort of solutions to do editing. Video editing in the cloud has been historically particularly sort of difficult because of the size of the video files and the difficulty of moving them and making them adaptable in various different ways. But before I actually talk to the sort of evolution of Blackbird, let me show you very quickly a little bit of what the technology is, and then my partner, George Maddox, will be going into this in more sort of depth. So if you just go to the Blackbird page and the solution page and scroll down, you will see what looks pretty much like a typical player to most people. What is unique about it is that every frame is actually captured within this player, and you can see that it plays out very smoothly and it's extremely sort of responsive. But what is more unique is the ability to go frame by frame, literally through every single sort of piece. And this makes anything that you do in the cloud be frame accurate and totally manipulable. And you can also go fast through the files and scrub the audio, first going forwards and backwards. So now I'm going double speed backwards and I can go triple speed backwards, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a highly malleable, highly responsive codec, which can play within a Chrome browser on essentially any kind of machine. I'm actually coming to you today on a Chromebook, and as you can see, it plays out wonderfully. And what you will also see is the ability to do editing within that sort of environment. And what's more, you only need a 2 megabit or higher connection in order to make it work. The reason for that is because there's some great technology behind the actual sort of product. And if you just do this yourself and go and do a Google patent search, you'll come up with something which looks like this. And you'll note that until last year, we were known as forbidden technologies. And if you just Google that, you will come up with these number of patents, which is the sort of IP behind the sort of technology. Let me just sort of speak briefly to the evolution of the company and the evolution of editing. I grew up in the world of television, as did most people here, and it's a wonderful sort of medium where you can produce great programming, but it tends to be expensive and relatively inflexible and premise-based. So when you were working at ABC and CBS and the like, you had to do all your sort of production within those facilities, and it was very hard to do anything particularly fast. The internet demanded speed, quite frankly, especially for social media distribution. A number of companies came along to sort of fill this void, most notably Snappy TV, which got acquired by Twitter. The problem was that neither of these worlds really sort of connected very well. In most places, you had people doing broadcasting and cable operations, and another group of people doing social media and web distribution. The beauty of the Blackbird codec is that it joins these two worlds together, that it allows you to not only do production at speed with great quality, but also to do it with high resolution sort of assets and distribute out to any kind of sort of platform that you might like, and to do it affordably. As we say in the software world, you know, this is solving the iron triangle. Give me speed, quality, and also affordability in one package. Usually the answer is pick two, but we believe we can write that triangle. The customer base also speaks to the evolution of Blackbird. We come out of the post world in the UK, and some 80% of the post houses in the UK use us for remote production. So for instance, Envy produces a television show in the US called Gold Rush, which is shot off in Alaska and British Columbia, but the editing is actually done back in London. And it used to take them 2 weeks to turn around the video to get it even in the hands of the editors. because they had to shoot everything in the field and then ship it back literally by mail to the UK to get it sort of processed, because there was tons of video. We enable them to upload from the field within the same day and allow the story editors and the loggers to basically get their hands on the content immediately. And this saves them not only a lot of money because they don't have to move teams to the wilderness, but also because it allows them to essentially start work on it and not miss the critical shots that are needed, and they can direct people to go out and shoot whatever might be missing. Over on the right, you see actually in the middle, more of our sort of growing customer base. And this is the typical sort of need for live and on-demand video production at speed. So we're happy to say that we've just signed up Liverpool and Arsenal. And not to be outdone in the US, we also work with the Buffalo Bills and the Sabres and the NFL through Delta Tray and also the European sort of golf tournament. We also have a lot of business in Australia with the national rugby team. And Town News actually represents some 50 television stations throughout the United States that use us in the background to chop up and repurpose their newscasts for multiple different sort of platforms. Over on the right, I just want to draw quick attention to A&E, which is an extremely interesting sort of workflow, because essentially what Blackbird does is gives them visibility and discoverability into their archive, into all their library content, and allows it to be sort of repurposed inexpensively, not only for marketing purposes, but also for reprogramming purposes. And in this day and age where it's very hard to shoot new programming, having easy access to all that library valuable content and being able to repurpose it is really important for them. And in the last year, they've sort of doubled their business with us, which we're glad to say. Peloton is a particularly interesting use case because essentially it means personalization to not only the desktop, but also to the bike top. And that allows people to get the trainer they want, telling them about the going up the biking experience that they are actually interested in. Barbary is actually an educational use case, and we also work with the State Department. All of our customers benefit from the ability to improve their sort of productivity. Across the board, you can generate a lot of assets really quickly and effectively, and the learning curve is really short, so a lot more people can actually do that work. It also delivers a lot of cost savings, which is important because you're not having to move a lot of big files around, you're not having to use a lot of bandwidth, you're not having to use a lot of storage because the technology is so lightweight. And that lightweight feature allows you to basically do that editing and publishing really fast, regardless of whatever system you're on, and ensure quality output because we're referencing back, and George will explain this in more detail, to the original asset when we're coming to publish back out the content. So we retain the quality of it. This also enables people, and it's really important to make money in this day and age as well as be efficient. And if you can chop up content into lots of effective chunks, then you can deliver it effectively to different sort of people on whatever platform, in whatever place they particularly need it at the appropriate sort of time. And lastly, but not least, the ability to provide remote workflows in this day and age where many of us have to work from home is what is particularly sort of significant now. Again, just to emphasize the point, all you need is an internet connection with 2 megabits of connection and a browser window and any kind of computer, and you can start doing professional editing from anywhere. I'm glad to say that a number of people in the industry think highly of us, everybody from the CTO of Delta Tray to industry writers who believe that we really are some of the best technology out there. I'm going to hand it off to George now, and just to sort of frame that discussion as I do that, think of the Blackbird platform as having two distinct products as part of it. There's the Edge, which does the magic of encoding the video to that highly lightweight format, which makes everything sort of possible. And then there's Blackbird Forte, which is the editing environment and publishing environment, which allows people to see it at their destination, at their point of ingestion, at their point of consumption. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to George and relinquish the sharing capabilities. George, it's all yours.
So thank you very much to Daniel and Natram for setting the scene so well. You should now be seeing a slide that says the Zixi and Blackbird solution. So it falls to me to sort of work out how these two world-class solutions knit together and the way in which we make that work. And so the first thing to do is explain to you the mechanism by which Blackbird works. And to start, we will explain, just so that everyone is fully in the picture, that while Blackbird can be used to do a lot of very, very clever things, the primary message for us to get across to you is that it is a video editor, a professional video editor that runs in a web browser tab on a basic laptop on minimal internet. So when I say a professional editor, I mean 12 video tracks, 32 audio tracks, and again, it runs on 2 megs of internet down a very basic internet connection. And as Daniel has already identified, the way in which we make that work is our codec, which you saw before. Our codec, which is completely frame accurate, utterly proprietary to us, subject to those multiple patents that you saw, and which absolutely no one else has. So at a fundamental level, that is how we make this all work. But the obvious question is, how do I get my materials into the Blackbird codec? And today, I'm very pleased to say that the even more precise question is, how do I take my Zixi feed and bring it into the Blackbird cloud for editing? So what we're going to do here is we're going to run through a high-level architecture of how Blackbird plugs into any system. And obviously, this is geared specifically around the integration we've done with Zixi. The methodology by which we take your materials and place them into our codec is a piece of software called the Blackbird Edge. The Blackbird Edge is ultra lightweight and it's very nimble. It can be run anywhere you like. In this particular instance, we're highlighting the fact that it can run on Azure, GCP, and AWS. And you would spin us up an EC2 machine on AWS or a virtual machine in Azure or GCP, but you can also run this on-premise if you so wish, on a physical Linux 2U server. From there, we ingest the Zixi stream through the integration that we will show you in a moment. And then having done so, we will take the material that you have given to us, and 6 seconds later, we will have made it into our codec and placed it in our cloud, where it can be edited with all the capabilities and the features that I've mentioned before. Now, we will go through this section of things in a moment. We'll walk you through the way in which you can edit in Blackbird in a second, but all I really want to emphasize while we're at a high architectural level is the difference between using a traditional nonlinear editor and using Blackbird. It is best akin and most akin to the difference between using a Microsoft Word document compared to using a Google document. You know, there was a time when everyone used Microsoft Word documents and they had to be saved to a computer and then emailed to another computer and then emailed back, and documents became called final, and then everyone moved to Google Documents. And you could all log in at once, and you could all collaborate at once. You could pass things back and forth easily. You could look out for your work, but also collaborate with others. And that is what Blackbird brings to the video editing environment. And we'll see all of that when we walk you through the editor in the moment. However, first, the next obvious question that comes up is, yes, I have fed my Zixi stream into your Edge software. It has been placed in your cloud where I have edited it. But how do I get materials out? Because I'm not interested in publishing things in your codec. And that's the obvious question, and that's the other clever thing that the Edge does. So what's going to happen is when you activate a publish in Blackbird, you will send a custom EDL back to the Blackbird Edge. That's a proprietary EDL of our own making. And from there, that is going to publish against your source material. So whatever bitrate you gave me with the Zixi stream, be it 5 megabits or be it 220 megabits, That is the resolution and the bit rate that will be published. And this is where Blackbird really kicks into top gear, because obviously there are web-based clippers such as things like Snappy, but their usage is primarily social. At a fundamental level, because Blackbird reconforms its assets against the source assets that were provided, your outputs, yes, they can go to social, but that is a very narrow use case of Blackbird. There's no reason why we can't feed high resolution assets back to your blob storage on your Azure, back to your GCS on Google Cloud, back to your S3 bucket in your AWS, or indeed into your on-premise storage, which we can mount directly to the edge, or your CDN, CMS, and MAM. And those outputs can not just limited to, let's just say, a single flat file publish. We can also publish you multiple stems for your ongoing adaptive bitrate packaging, where we can publish them with a sidecar of XML to help with that. And at a fundamental level, we can pretty much do every output you would want, while still fundamentally allowing your editors to work from anywhere in the cloud on a very basic laptop or basic internet connection in a web browser tab. So if there are any questions about this, and there often are to do with compatibility and workflow, please do put them in the Q&A. We'll be delighted to answer them then. But just for now, let's move into the back end of Blackbird and demonstrate the Zixi stream coming in. So this is the back end of the Blackbird demo account. There are various different products that can be picked up here, and this is where your editors would initially navigate to. And at the top, we see the higher level super user functions, which focus around the Edge server, which we just mentioned, various other usage assessments, but also the ability to bring material in. Now I'm going to fast forward us to the Edge server that we're using for the Zixi integration. And in here, this is essentially your control panel for what you want to bring in to Blackbird. And at the moment, these are Zixi streams that we've used in the past for testing purposes and that we want to use in the future. There is even over here, the very first Zixi stream that we brought into Blackbird, which we set going longer than 1 day and 22 hours ago. But the latest time we set that going, it has been coming consistently into Blackbird for 1 day and 22 hours. And will keep going until such time as I click the stop icon, bringing things in, which means that if you do have 24/7 streams that need to run for 3 days, that's absolutely possible. It is, we can use it for short-term usage, but this can also be a long-term solution to clipping from, let's say, a continuous rolling newsfeed. So let's go ahead and add an additional Zixi stream, just so you understand the integration and the process and how straightforward it is. I'm going to click new stream. It'll come up as new Zixi Retriever stream. And just for the sake of neatness, I'll call it Zixi Retriever stream 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the Blackbird account I want to route it to. In this occasion, I'm going to route it to demo underscore Blackbird, which is there. And you know that is where we are because you can remember you could see it before on this tab. I'm going to assign an arrivals folder. And all of this is about making sure that your material goes to the right place it needs to go, wherever you need to go it. That's a workflow, which can be used for various complicated reasons. But for now, I've just picked out the basic. And this is where the specific Zixi integration comes in. I'm going to take my Zixi host. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in here. Obviously, those of you with a Zixi system will have easy access to that. The port is preset, but could be configured if you so wished. I'm going to pick up the stream ID as well. And I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to put that into that box here. And then finally, I'm going to pick up the password and I'm going to place the password within there as well. There are many other options. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to touch them because there's no need. However, on a fundamental basis, there are things that you can do, such as to break things down into duration of sections. So, for example, if I did have a 24-hour stream, that's a very difficult stream sometimes to work with. So, therefore, you might want to break this down into 1-hour sections, or 30-minute sections, or 2-minute sections, or whatever you need. That can all be set here, along with various different clip name templates and naming conventions, which again are just there to make sure that you can orchestrate your asset. I click create, and now we are plugged up to the Zixi receiver stream, and it is now showing ready to record. Now, again, we've got levels of control here because just because I've pre-configured it doesn't necessarily mean I want to pipe it through to my editors. All of these are pre-configured and ready to go, but I'm not choosing to pipe them through yet. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click record, and that essentially activates this and drives it through into the account. So without further ado, let's move into that account. And here we are. So this over here is the file section of Blackbird, which is where material comes into. And you can see the Zixi folder, which is where I've orchestrated the stream move to, which we'll go to in a minute. But firstly, let me contextualize what you're looking at. Blackbird, as we've said, is a video editor that runs in a web browser tab. And so it would be foolish of us not to make it possible for the stream to be able to, or the web app to be configured in such a way that we can make it usable by people with multiple different layers of skills. So this is the default layout of Blackbird that you're seeing, which I've set on this account. But there are various other options that we can activate, which help you understand the various different ways that Blackbird can be used. And I think for now, we're going to start off in the Clipper view, which is what we call it. So let's just say that that feed we were taking in from Zixi was something very important, a news feed, yeah, a news feed with very important information in it. And this particular shot here was the key moment. This is the bit that everyone in the world was going to want to hear about. Now, interestingly enough, as Daniel emphasized before, we can see every frame and we can navigate every single frame with the left and right keyboard buttons. And so I can see actually where the scene changes happen. So it makes it very easy for me to cut things. So for now, I'm going to mark an in, I'm going to mark an out, and I'm just going to pick this up and I'm going to drag this over to my pre-configured publish option over here on the left. Blackbird's publish options are all pre-configured and they sit here, and they could be, as we see, Facebook, or they could be an H.264, or they could be an XDCAM or a DNxHD, or whatever you needed. So what are we doing? Just to reiterate, at this point, I have just marked an in point, I've marked an out point, I sent a corresponding EDL back to the AWS GCP or Azure machine on your instance that is running this, and I am pushing the publish through. In this occasion, I'm just going to do a downloadable file for demonstration purposes, but we could just as easily be using the API that we have into Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. So if we head back to the account, we'll probably find, unless I've done something foolish, which I have, that the publish runs through off the back of that. So moving forward from there, let's take this a step further. For now, let's drag that across there. And then let's take this a step further and let's pick up from a slightly different thing. Let's just say that I didn't want to immediately push straight through to social media. Let's say I wanted to push through to something slightly different. Let's say I wanted to do, say I was a content media expert working in one part of the world. Blackbird is a genuinely worldwide tool. Let's say I was a content media expert working in Japan. And I was watching a sport that was particularly well known in Japan, but not known in the Western world. And off the back of that, I wanted to pick up material and I wanted to clip that and I wanted to pass it around. I wanted the European editors to have the material that was interesting from this sport. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to open up Blackbird and I'm going to move it into something slightly different, which is an expanded view. And here I'm going to mark the in, I'm going to mark the out. And instead of dragging left to the publish, I'm going to drag right. And you see that what I start to create below is a timeline. And that timeline that I start to create below is different to the publish direct option. I'm going to pick this up, I'm going to drag this across. And you see what I'm creating here. This is a timeline which allows things to move left and right. And this is the sort of thing you'd find in a Premiere or a Media Composer or whatever else. That timeline is the beginnings of a full-blown edit. Now, to pick this up and take this to the next degree, let's say that the editor that I believe I said was in France. Did I say France? Someone can correct me in the Q&A if I didn't say France. Remember, the content matter expert in Japan has picked out what's interesting about the sport. The editor is somewhere else in the world. And what they're going to do is they're going to, this is the full blown. At this point, we're looking at full Blackbird. This is full and comprehensive Blackbird with every single thing, bell and whistle, that you would expect. So what I'm going to do is I've got my 2 bits of material. I'm going to jump back to the endpoint. I'm going to set a crossfade. So if this is a more Premiere-like experience, which it might be, we know that it's hard to move video editors back and forth between different systems. So as a consequence, we have various different keyboard shortcuts that can be adopted by the editor. So we've got a Premiere Pro in there, a Media Composer in there, and obviously that'll duplicate all the keyboard shortcuts associated, and Final Cut Pro 7 as well, for those of you who are nostalgic. I don't know if any of you are nostalgic for Final Cut Pro 7, but there are enough people out there who are that we included that. So if you're worried about your editors saying, how will I pick this up? Then your editors can rest assured that they will be working on things that they are used to in the manner they are accustomed. So we've got a Media Composer and a Premiere Pro and a Final Cut Pro. For now, I've picked the default because I'm used to using it like that. So now my keyboard shortcuts are mapped to that. And I've got this timeline that was originally created by my content creator somewhere in the world. And I want to make this timeline into an over-the-top asset. So what am I going to do? I am going to, well, first things first, I've got the crossfade, so that sort of smooths over that slightly nasty cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an image or animation with an alpha channel. So specifically to do that, I'm going to go and grab myself this lower bar PNG here and drag it in over the top. I'm going to pick up there, I'm going to drag back across there. And there you go, you see. So that could just as easily be an image or an animating graphic. Because we support the alpha channel, it's easy for me to lay it across the top. And obviously that would be the same for your logos or whatever else you liked. I've chosen the lower bar because I'm going to use our captioning and subtitling tool to add some text. And that text doesn't need to just add some text. It could read catch the sport this weekend or whatever it might be. So obviously this isn't quite right. So I'm going to add up my text amendment tool. I'm going to drag this across there. I'm going to drag this down there, and I'm going to move this across to the side. I am going to go to overclock regular, and that's pretty good. Okay, so now we've got I'll drag the text out as well so it matches the bar. So that's not too bad. That's getting somewhere. I don't think it would pass muster with the people who I used to get my edits approved by, but it will do the job, and it makes you understand the things that Blackbird can do. What's the next thing to do? Well, we want to fade to a nice call to action at the end. So I'm going to get myself right clear on the corner, and I'm going to fade down to white. I have actually a full color palette to fade down to, but white will do. And I'm going to pick up the Blackbird board, and I'm going to drag that in there. And at this point, there we go. Now that is not an over-the-top publishable asset, but that is the construction pieces that would relate to the same. And again, I can drag it across the publish points, as many as I so wish. Indeed, if I activate the Facebook publish, I can do this like this, which would involve something along the lines of adding a title or a description, and then various different options related to the channel, such as the ability to publish, unpublish, upload and publish, and the rest. So I'll just call this a test publish and push that through to Facebook. Like so. And of course, those options are variable by whatever you might so want in terms of your various different workflows. So if you did want a side of XML metadata, as well as a side of multiple file variations, those are available as well. And there's no great issue to do any or all of those things. So moving on from there, what we usually do at this juncture is that we open things up to slightly the Q&A, which we'll go into in a second. But just before I do that, let me just dive a little bit further into some of the use cases that Blackbird has. So this is a basic construction edit. It's good for OTT, and I think that's absolutely fine. I think what's more interesting is to note that obviously we are a Avid based, or rather we were previously used to recreate the complexity and the in-depth information contained in Avid edits. So you have, as I've mentioned, multiple audio tracks. So for example, if I click this plus button, I see all of the features that are available in Blackbird. Multiple video tracks, multiple audio tracks, and more can be added like so. And I just want to reiterate something at this juncture. This is the Zixi stream coming in. And if you notice, every 6 seconds or so, this is going to jump forward. Now, it'll take Blackbird about 6 seconds or so to generate the Blackbird codec. My colleague Natrum assures me that we can get the material from you with 1 second of latency, which means that to all intents and purposes, this is going to pop up 7 seconds after your live stream. And so when I go through these edit functions here, which include things like the ability to pick this up and move that particular bar across to the top, for example, and then do the same with the text down below, which you saw me add myself, it's worth understanding that these features aren't something that you apply later. They're not something that you do after the fact. This is stuff that can be done seconds after live. Indeed, the National Rugby League of Australia, who have used this, came to us with a very specific problem. And they said, our issue is that our social media editors are being beaten to the punch. And they're being beaten to the punch by people in pubs pointing camera phones at replays. And we need to know if we can get out there quicker than them. And we did. So their brief to us was to get this publishing in under a minute, and that's what we managed to achieve. And that workflow, that publishing workflow and that speed is what a lot of our customers around the world are leveraging. And I am particularly, as someone who sort of helped put the thing together, excited about the integration that we have between ourselves and Zixi, because this level of control, this level of edit, and this level of capability set against their speed to push materials through I think offers a great deal of promise, and something that those of you who are Zixi and Blackbird customers could really utilize very, very fast. And I think probably at this juncture, unless either Daniel or anyone else in the call wants to contradict me, is probably the point to move back to the Q&A.
All right, thanks, George. If anybody wants to ask a question, please put it into the Q&A section, and we will answer them.
Actually, if you don't mind, John, let me just quickly go back for one quick second to my screen share. Is that all right? I'm going slightly off book. I just because sometimes it's useful to answer the Q&As with that, but also because the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that I missed a publish earlier and said, "Oops, I've done something stupid." And I just want to set everyone's minds at rest. So if I open this back up here, this here is the asset that I dragged across, added some text, and put on earlier. And you can see the horrible cross dissolve I added and the fade through to white at the end, published as an H.264 that plays back in the browser. So just to set everyone's minds at rest, because I know we have some keen eyes on the internet, and I will investigate what I did wrong with my fast publish later. But for now, that published there is the material that was originally published through to this publish button and came out as an H.264 rendered against source. So should we start opening questions at this junction?
Yes.
Superb. Identity and authentication. Natrum, do you want to handle the Zixi end of that, and then I'll pick up the Blackbird end?
Sure. Zixi does support SSO, single sign-on, with Okta, Google, and Office 365.
Superb. And from a Blackbird perspective, unfortunately, we're not quite as advanced as Zixi on that regard, but SSO is a very, very, very prominent feature of our roadmap and will be coming ASAP.
All right, so this I think is a Blackbird question. Can you support a custom font library, or are the fonts limited to defaults in the system?
No, we absolutely can support a custom font library. There's one slight nuance to the custom font library question, which is that we will need to upload that for you into the relevant account, and that's because actually, although they seem lightweight, fonts are really very powerful indeed, and those fonts can actually overwhelm the system if they're not implied in the right way. But we can add anything you need.
All right, another question, a couple of questions about Blackbird compatibility. Are you compatible with any known plugin providers? What MAM systems would Blackbird be able to work with?
So I'll answer the second first, if that's all right. So at a fundamental level, our way of plugging into your MAM is to mount to your network attached storage associated with the MAM. However, then off the back of that, there are various hooks available out of the box. Those hooks available out of the box are the ability to filter by name, file type, file size, file codec, and file location, specifically around folders. However, what we're seeing more and more of as CV19, it sadly takes its toll, is people asking us for more custom integrations with MAMs, picking up from them. Obviously, each MAM is different, and each deployment of a MAM is different, no matter what the MAM manufacturer might tell you. And so those API hooks are relatively bespoke, but if you tell us what you have, then we will find a way to artfully and elegantly pick up what you need.
In Blackbird, is there support for multiple languages for subtitling, specifically Arabic or Mandarin?
There is support for Arabic coming in the next few months. That has been a requirement of a customer who I now, having opened my mouth, don't know if I can name, but nonetheless, that is imminent. And anything that you drag across the publish items here, so this Facebook publish that I ran earlier, which incidentally looks to have gone through fine. There is the asset that I published through to Facebook. This here on the Facebook publish could just as easily have been any language supported by the browser. And the work to add support for Mandarin and other languages to sit down on the captioning line here is running in line with the Arabic. So it's a general language support option. And again, that's slated for the next 3 to 3 months.
And let me just briefly add to that, because we support some 32 audio sort of different channels, you can have different language tracks associated with the video track. So it's very good for localization over and above different sort of presentation of different languages.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Will Blackbird work on a VPN network?
Thank you very much for the question. I have been doing pre-sales / solutions architecture for long enough to know to be smart enough not to say yes, no. What we need is a connection from the edge to get the material out, and the various different network requirements for that can be outlined. That obviously that connection is the one which moves the majority of materials up into the cloud. So that connection there does need to be pretty locked down. However, the editor here, that's pretty much just an open internet connection. So unless you've asked us to block a specific region of the world for Blackbird usage, which we haven't done yet because no one has asked us to, then yes, we will function down a VPN. We don't mind where the traffic comes down.
Does Blackbird have APIs available for automation, specifically for social media ready content?
Correct. Absolutely. So that publish that I showed you earlier, you remember that I dragged this one across Facebook. Facebook is an example of the API. And then the information that I added there, I think I put in test publish, which was unimaginative, but nonetheless it is there. But then we also have return metadata that can be pulled back in from the social media sites as well and can be passed on to various other sections. Also each different, I'm afraid I've only got Facebook enabled on this account, but each different social media publish has different things. So your Twitter account has various different hooks that can be used to hook into Media Composer and various other setups as well.
You might want to also add, George, the fact that we can automatically associate stingers and graphics to publishers on the point of publish, and we can also daisy chain the publishers together, so you could do Twitter, Facebook, YouTube in one sort of move and have whatever your branding is automatically added on publish.
That is precisely right. And in fact, to a bit more detail on that, this is my backend publish option. And these are the various different options I have against that. But Daniel's absolutely correct to point it out. Although in the example given, I did add a logo and a bug on the timeline, the logo and the bug could just as easily be applied upon the publish.
Next question. We have time for a few more. Do you have automatic subtitling system for publishing to Facebook and Instagram?
We obviously, as shown in the demo, we have the ability for you to add captions, and we also have the ability to bring in captions, although those are rather more associated with some of the more traditional Blackbird inputs, such as HLS, and we'd have to add those to the Zixi integration. In terms of automatic, which is always the slightly tricky word, there are various different hooks into Blackbird for auto subtitling, but they involve communicating with a subtitle house and then getting the returned file back that can be applied on the timeline. However, we can, and actually to answer Loren's question, SRT export or import, yes, we can bring in SRT and we can export SRT as well, and that can be applied onto the timeline. And obviously with some of the feeds we can bring through those directly onto the timeline, as we can with various other options. So there are, but I'd be slightly inquisitive as to what we mean by automatic. What we don't currently have is a sort of hook that allows you to auto pick up captions straight onto our timeline. It's not that we're not looking at it, it's just that that roadmap item has moved slightly further down given the increased business we're seeing in and around CV19.
Right. So I think we're going to take this opportunity to have Daniel close with some takeaways. If we didn't get to your question, we will follow up via email. And Daniel, maybe you can take this last bit home.
Sure. So thank you, John. Thank you, Neetram, George. Thanks as always. So just to sort of emphasize where I started off, The ability of Zixi and Blackbird working together allows any customer to have exceptional sort of speed of publishing, as well as a secure sort of workflow and interoperability with your various sort of different sort of systems. And that speed and agility is really sort of critical to people working in this sort of day and age. It also enables the cost savings, which we've talked somewhat about, the ability to sort of scale up or down according to your sort of needs and reduce the amount of hardware and bandwidth and also storage that are needed, because the solution is being optimized to be sort of lightweight. There is very little associated what is traditionally being sort of thought of as CapEx expenses. And this makes it extremely affordable as a total cost of ownership. Not only, one of the biggest sort of challenges that people have in this sort of multimedia sort of world nowadays is to sort of break through. And one of the critical things that you need to be able to do is market effectively. And one of the things that Blackbird is very good at is enabling you with some tools to quickly and very speedily market to wherever your audience might be, regardless of whatever platform they're on, be it social, be it on the web, be it actually on sort of TV. And the ability to customize that marketing material specifically with your own brands and your specific sort of language, et cetera, to those various sort of different sort of audiences. It also allows you, as was discussed earlier, to monetize, because you can use a dynamic ad insertion sort of technology to target specifically the content to whoever is interested in watching it, or provide recommendation of content specific to that particular sort of person, as we do, for instance, with Peloton. From a quality standpoint, I think that you've now seen some of the sort of high-level capabilities of the Blackbird Cloud Editor. There is a lot more functionality, which we'd be very happy to sort of show you. But essentially, just sort of keep in mind that because it was based off of the functionality that is available in Adobe and sort of Avid sort of workflows, there is immense feature capabilities within Blackbird as a platform, and that allows you to retain not only the editable sort of functionality, but also the quality of publish, because we are rendering back against source, as was brought up. And lastly, but not least, and all of this is fairly sort of immaterial unless you can sort of reach the audience which you want to engage with. Hence, the ability to publish video essentially to any platform on any device at any time, be it web, mobile, social, broadcast, or OTT. And if you need to, as some of our customers need to in the film world, go back to Avid workflows, we can also, via an AAF, transport that content back into those workflows for finishing of one kind or another. In combination with Zixi, we really do, we believe, provide an extremely sort of powerful solution which gives you that ability to deliver content really fast to anywhere. With that, John, with the remaining couple of minutes, I'll hand it back to you to conclude.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, George. Thank you, Natram. We appreciate your time today, and all of the participants who have joined us. As we are coming to an end, if you would like to have somebody contact you directly, we have different ways of you to do that. You can fill out the poll, and that is now live. Ask to meet with an expert from Zixi, an expert from Blackbird, or possibly, if you have a specific project in mind, we can schedule a meeting with both of us. You can also reach out to us for general questions at Zixi, info@zixi.com, Blackbird at commercial@blackbird.video, and also visit our respective websites, www.zixi.com and www.blackbird.video. So I'd like to thank everybody today. This has been very productive, and we will conclude there. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon.